newbies in the room, can you share with them when we role played this process, first of all, did I pre-frame you in any way?
No, walked in blind.
She had no idea what was gonna happen. She just knew she was gonna be a patient. So, and I walked you through a series of questions. Tell them what that experience was.
In many years, I've never had anybody ask all those questions. It was like positive to think that a dental office would care that much. I even made a joke that if I didn't like who I was going to, I was coming to y'all, you know. It was just very informative, very things that I would have never thought that a doctor's office, a dentist's office, anybody would ask. So it was real positive, and like walked away thinking, wow, these people really care what I think and what is my priorities and working with me in any way that they can.
Very nice. Thank you. And then we have this young lady. So can you come up and share what you shared with me at the break?
So, I've been with Dr. Barnett for 4 months, and Shay did the interview with me. And my past is that I've moved around a lot, and so I've never had one dentist more than one time. So these questions were very intimate for me because I've had bad experiences, and no one's ever asked for those before. So I was able to express those to Shay, and she knows my vulnerability, and it was important.
How did you feel?
Significant, important, and that I'd be cared for.
Okay, so what I just did for you is called a pre-frame. I want you to have a framework to take this process through. And the framework is, if you will do this and make it part of just your culture and your patient experience, that is the feeling your patients will walk away with. How many of you would like for every patient to walk away with that feeling when they exit your door? Okay, so let me finish these steps, and I'm going to go grab my patient. I think she went to the restroom or she went somewhere, so I've got to go find her. She also has not been pre-framed or coached in any way as to what to say or what to do. All she knows is that I want her to help us with a process. That'll take about 15, 20 minutes, okay? So I'll go get her in a second. Going back up here to your steps, so after the initial interview, then the doctor comes in, performs a comprehensive exam, the head and neck exam, then goes into identifying the needs. So what are the clinical needs this patient has, and what are the solutions we have to offer? Then immediately into, and by the way, when they're talking about the needs, they're presenting these needs through the context of the patient's what? The patient's values and the patient's rules and meta programs. So again, there are a lot of layers here. It takes some practice to get this. But identifying those needs, stating the consequences. The consequences could be consequences of not moving forward, consequences of delaying this, consequences of not treating it. That's part of the pain amplification. Remembering that whether someone is moving toward or moving away from, everyone will do more to move away from pain than they will to move toward pleasure. Okay? So we will still have to invoke a little bit of pain or consequence if they don't seem to be responding the way that we desire. Then we're just going to do the solution. So after we stir up a little pain and give them something to move away from, or get them anchored to why they want to change, next we're going to present their solutions. After we present their solutions, then we're going to get the commitment, which is getting the appointment scheduled, getting the financial arrangement signed, and getting them scheduled. These are the 10 steps we want every new patient to be guided through when they step foot in our door. Because it creates an experience, it creates an anchor, it meets their 6 human needs, or at least 4 of their fundamental needs, and it gives you absolute certainty that they are now a lifelong patient in your practice. Before I go get our patient, what questions do you have about this? Questions, concerns, thoughts, feedback? Not going to say anything.
I was saying that the between 5 and 6, the assistant hygienist, whomever gets the x-rays? I mean,
Well, this is just the interview, and yes, we have to have the x-rays before the exam.
Okay.
Absolutely, we'll have to have pictures before the exam. But this is all of. This is the new patient visit in its entirety, start to finish, from the initial touch. Okay? You guys ready?
Sure.
Let me go get my patient. And do me a favor, as I walk her through these questions, I want you guys to use your sensory acuity and see if you can figure out meta programs, values, rules. See in your documentation you can figure that out, and I need a pen. Jessica, can you throw me a pen? No. And do we have an extra workbook? That one has Kathy's initial clinical interview. Oh, thank you. I'll be right back. So my other new patient canceled. So now we have John. Okay, so John, have I pre-framed you in any way about what you're about to do?
I have no idea why I'm here.
He's ordering now while you walk in the door.
Yes. So we actually want you to be a patient for us.
Okay.
They're learning some new skills about patient experiences and how to communicate better with their patients so that they know they're connecting with them. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Just answer as you would if you were sitting in the chair. Be your natural self. Don't try to create anything, but just be a patient as if you were visiting my dental office for the very first time.
Okay.
We do that?
Yep.
Okay. So I've already answered the phone. I've already given him the tour. Now we're walking into the conference room. He's got a seat. So John, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm doing wonderful. So, John, in our practice, I don't know, when's the last time you went to the dentist? She had documented it's been about 2 years. Is that right?
Yep.
So, in our office, we know every patient is different. Not everyone wants to be treated the same. Not everyone wants the same care. So before we actually take you back to the doctor, we want to find out more about what you want and how we can best meet your needs. Would it be okay if I just asked you a few questions?
Sure.
Get to know you a little bit better?
Sure.
Okay. And Reggie and I just want to make some notes so we don't miss anything, okay? So, John, what is really most important to you in the care you receive in our office?
Overall wellness. Just make sure that everything's working right. Make sure I don't have any make sure I don't have anything kind of pop up on me that I wasn't expecting.
Okay. John, what about that's important to you?
I had a root canal that I had to have about 10 years ago, and it kind of just came up out of nowhere, and somehow my general dentist missed it, and I just don't want to have that happen again.
promise you, Dr. Rushing is extremely thorough. We have all the latest technology, so we shouldn't miss anything. We should be pretty proactive here, so we try to stay abreast. Now, what has to happen for you to know that your health, that your oral health is in a perfect state of wellness for you? How do you know when that's there?
I'm a pretty trusting person, so usually if, I kind of take someone at their word. So if the doctor says, hey, everything's looking really good, then I'm gonna take him at his word. He says, John, we've got an issue here, we need to address it, I'll take him at his word. He's the one that went to school for all these years, not me.
Now, what's really most important to you in your relationship with the dentist?
I'm a pretty sarcastic person, so I like someone that can laugh with me.
And I probably, you may have to see Dr. Tom. You need someone to laugh with you, that's awesome. Dr. Tom is hilarious, I'll have to have him share a joke. What else is important to you about your relationship with the dentist?
Someone's not gonna be too pushy with me. I don't need someone to, I know everyone's got their bad habits. I have my own, and, I don't need someone to be like, hey, that's what I got married for. I don't need someone else to tell me what kind of. Happily married 8 years. So I love my wife.
Say it to the camera. All right, and so John, how would we need to present? Should we find anything that needs to be addressed? How can we present it in a way that you do not feel at all that we're trying to be pushy? We're just really, really trying to get you to the optimum state of wellness.
I think just kind of present options A and B. I'm a two-option person. Just say, hey, this is what happens if you do this. This is what happens if you don't do this. And I think I'm pretty smart after that to say, okay, let's do what's right.
Anything else we would need to do so that you don't feel pushed and you don't feel?
No, I think I'm pretty good there.
Okay. Now, do you have any areas in your mouth right now that are concerning?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that you're aware of? Okay. Perfect. Are any of your teeth sensitive to hot?
No.
No. What about cold?
Yeah, I've got a couple there since it's cold.
Some are, which side are they?
Usually right here in front.
Right here in the front. We'll take a look at those just to make sure we don't get you in a position where you have that treatment that you're completely unaware of. We certainly don't want to miss anything. Okay? Any of your teeth sensitive to sweets?
No. Love them all.
Love them. So you're sensitive to sweets?
Yes.
What about pressure?
No.
No? Good. Just cold, so we'll take a look at that. Now, have you ever had orthodontic treatment? No? How about oral surgery?
One root canal.
How long ago?
About 10 years ago.
Do you remember which side, which location?
Bottom left.
Any periodontal treatment in your past? Ever had your bite adjusted for any reason? You ever worn a bite plate? Now, recently, or in the past several months, have you ever noticed loosening with your teeth?
Mm-hmm.
Food catching between your teeth at all?
Concentrate.
Constantly? No. Okay, does that bother you at all?
You just have to keep flossing everybody.
Okay. Any pain or swelling in your gums?
Mm-hmm.
Ever notice bad breath or an odor coming from your mouth? Except in the morning? What's your wife say? Just kidding. Now, have you ever heard of periodontitis? Once we take a look at your gums and just make sure everything's on the up and up, if we spot anything, we'll tell you a little bit about what's going on, what the disease process is, so again, we can make sure that there are no surprises for you. Would that be okay?
Sounds good.
John, have you ever had clicking in your jaw? What about pain on the joint here, side of face?
Only when I have sinus infection
Do you get sinus infections frequently?
right now.
Right now? Ever any difficulty opening and closing your mouth? No? Difficulty chewing?
I'm pretty boring, aren't I?
Have you ever been told that you clench or grind your teeth?
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay. Like your lips or cheeks?
Cheeks from time to time.
Cheeks from time to time?
Yeah, lips on those too.
Do you ever hold foreign objects with your teeth? No? You ever breathe through your mouth, or has your wife ever noted that you snore, that you breathe through your mouth while you're asleep? All the time? What do you know about sleep apnea?
My dad has it.
Have you ever been tested for it? No? Has your wife ever told you to stop breathing? We'll talk about some of your options there, and I want Dr. Rushing to have a chance to kind of explain to you what that is and what the risks are, just so we can be proactive with you. I'm not too worried about it just yet, but just something we want to be aware of, so I just want you to know she'll probably be looking at some of those things. Okay? John, is there anything you'd like to change about the appearance of your teeth, or what would you change about your smile if you could wave a magic wand?
Like for not to be as dark, like for me a little lighter.
How long have you thought about that?
For like 2 years.
Okay? Is it bothering you now, or what about it bothers you?
It doesn't bother me, I mean, I don't lose sleep over it, it's just, just something, from time to time, when you brush your teeth, it still doesn't look as good.
Okay. So you're trying to look good for it, huh?
Myself.
Okay, now what's most important to you in your relationship with our dental team here?
I'm a wimp whenever it comes to a dentist, so, last time I had it at the dentist, I told him, I don't want to know that I'm here, I want to feel like I'm on the beach, don't let me know I'm here.
Okay.
No offense. I'm terrified of all of you, by the way.
The good news is they don't have any other torture devices.
That's very good. Very good, I won't tell you what's running back.
All right, now what are your expectations of us? Because we always pride ourselves in just treating patients like they want to be treated, giving them everything that they want. So what are your expectations of us?
Just a comfortable environment and a place that, like I said, open and honest with me. Tell me what I need to do, tell me how I can fix it, or, give me a high five, tell me to go on my merry little way.
Now, it's interesting being open and honest because it is one of the foundations of what we built here, but what would we have to do to make sure that you knew we were being completely open and honest with you?
I think just show me the fact, show me, how you kind of came to your decision. Let me know, hey, based upon this x-ray or based upon this scan, we found this, or, I've seen this in other patients and this is what I've noticed with them, and this is how I've treated it before. And I'm good off of either factual data or historical data.
Anything else we would need to do so that you knew we were being completely open and honest?
I don't think that's good.
Okay. Now, what did you like best about the dentist you used to see?
It's very friendly, very, calming to me, because I get a little anxiety about it. I typically always get a migraine whenever I come to the dentist, so she was very kind and very gracious to me, and, didn't call me a grown man wimp, so it was nice.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, how long would you like to keep your teeth?
They got died, I guess.
Thank you.
go to a lot of hockey games, so maybe that has an impact.
Very well could. Have you ever seen someone get their teeth knocked out?
Sometimes,
What was that? Was it a bloody mess?
a little bit.
A little bit? That didn't traumatize you at all, did that? Good. All right, John, when Dr. Rushing comes in, she completes your exam, and she needs to present to you the findings. Are you looking for the best she can offer, just anything?
I don't think it's gonna boil down to money. I mean, you know, I'm not a wealthy man by any stretch of the means, so a lot of it just comes down to what I can afford to do at the time, and if I can't all afford it at once, maybe I can do step by step.
And just so I can be clear with our financial coordinator, because everyone has a different perception of what affordability is,
Mhm.
because we want to make sure we stay proactive and we don't give you any surprises. From an affordability standpoint, what is your definition of affordability?
It shouldn't be more than my mortgage payment.
And should we find something where maybe we've got something a little more invasive than what we expect to run into?
Mhm.
Would you be interested in monthly payment options should it exceed your mortgage payment?
Sure.
Now, should we find something that needs to be done? Would you prefer just the big picture end result, or do you really want all of the details?
I like some details.
And when there's something that you need to have done, do you tend to wait till a problem arises, or do you like to be informed ahead of time? Do you like to be in front of the problem?
How much more I want to be in front of the problem?
Just a few more questions, do you okay?
Yep.
Why did you leave your last dental office?
Moved out of state.
Is there anything else you'd like me to share with Dr. Rushing before she sees you about how you'd like to be treated, the care you'd like for her to provide, or anything that you're looking for her?
I think we pretty much covered it.
What needs to happen, if anything, and what she's gonna recommend as far as making sure we keep you at that level of growth that you really wanna be at.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Sounds great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you give them just a couple of minutes of feed? By the way, how long did that take?
20
When did we start?
50 minutes.
Took about 20 minutes, okay? Now, can we give them some feedback about what that was like?
I really am honest. I'm terrified of dentists. I'm terrified all the time. That's why I generally don't go as often as I should.
So when a person like me comes into your office, a lot of questions can be very intimidating. It kind of starts like my hands are sweaty already. And I know I'm not even in a
And did you
dental
guys,
office.
did you guys notice too, when he was in his chair, did you notice, it wasn't until the end that he faced me? How many of you noticed that? That he was blocking me. He would face me, his body was facing forward, his head would look at me. How many of you noticed that? And you noticed that, okay, go ahead.
I think the more, and again, this is personality, you know, and I'm not the expert at it, but to me, it's more if you can figure out that the person's terrified, the person's nervous, crack a joke, make them laugh a little bit, you know, try to ease the tension a little bit. I mean, Ray did a good job with that. I'm just trying to make sure that, you know, I can laugh about something and, you know, everything. So, like I said, I'm just that weird guy. So I work for a dental company and I'm terrified. So that makes me normal. Okay. No one's ever told them that.
Now, if you went into your office and they just took a little bit of time to get to know you a little bit, trying to figure out how best to meet your needs, how would you feel about the office you were in?
It made me feel a lot better. It made me feel that it was more genuine, that they care about what I'm interested in, not so much as in they're trying to accomplish what's best for them.
Okay. Did you genuinely feel, and just, this is just for them, doesn't hurt my feelings, did you genuinely feel I wanted to know what you wanted, not what I wanted?
I would say so. I think there was a couple times where, I did feel like I kind of answered the question and that was it.
I know exactly where he's talking about, because I asked him a question early on, and then it was on the form, and I asked him again, so I know what you're talking about.
So, and I mean, it doesn't bother me, but it's still just kind of like, well, wait, what are you getting at? Why are we going over
Why
this?
am I asking him again,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Yep.
And if you notice when how many of you know which question I'm talking about?
How long ago was it? About the teeth, losing teeth?
No, it was actually, it was, where did it go? I know which question it was, because as soon as I hit it, I thought, Jacob had already did that. Oh, when there is something that needs to be done, do you tend to wait? Or do you want to be proactive? And he
Yeah.
already told me he wanted to be proactive.
So there wasn't any reason for you to ask him?
There wasn't any reason for me to ask him again. I kind of got into state because I was looking at the stupid form. But that was the question I doubled up, and I knew as soon as I did it because his physiology changed.
And I guess that's one thing that I would say, because, I mean, I'm a manager. I know what it's like whenever I'm having to, especially, I just finished annual reviews. So I say the same thing over and over again a lot of times. And it's very repetitive. And I'm sure as you're asking some of these questions, it's going to get very repetitive. But active listening is huge. Being able to listen to what the patient's telling you and saying, because they're probably going to answer a question that you already have coming. And then all of a sudden, if you come back around me later and you're like, well, what about this? And you're like, well, I told you that 10 minutes ago. Active listening is huge. And that has everything to do outside of life too. But still,
Absolutely.
so.
Absolutely. So overall, what was that experience like for you? Just so
It was good. Like I said, it was genuine. It made me feel a little bit more relaxed. It made me feel like it was wanting to really focus on what I want, not necessarily what anybody else wants.
Okay. Perfect. Give John a hand.
Good luck, guys. I'm gonna go try in the field.
So yeah, he needs to be your patient.
I have a quick question on that. Who's supposed to conduct that 25-minute interview?
Whoever is the most appropriate person in your office. Earlier, I had mentioned I have some offices where the doctors want to do it.
Okay.
The doctors want to. I have others where the hygienist does it. I have others where, the patient coordinator does it or the new patient concierge does it. So every office has to figure out what's right for them. There is no, it must be this way, because everything is flexible. Everything can work into the structure you already have. So you have to figure out what is the easiest, most efficient, most effective way we can get this conducted on every new patient. But our doctor and our hygienist are informed about what the patient wants. Okay? What other questions do you have about that? Then I'm gonna ask you what meta programs, what values, and what rules you pulled from that, because he gave us all of them. No questions?
Can we not just have them fill this out? I mean, I'm not gonna hire somebody extra just to be.
You don't have to hire someone extra.
When are they gonna find
And
this
no, should they
25
just fill
minutes
it out?
of
No,
time for a new
because if I
patient
just
exam,
let,
they only get an hour.
I know. But if I just let him fill it out, there were several times he answered my question, but gave me no information. So I had to ask another supportive question to get the answer that was really there. This should always be done face to face. It should be a conversation, not a survey. It's not a survey, it is an interview. So you can condense it to get it kicked off. You can condense it. You can shorten it a little bit. You can pick out the questions that you deem are most important. We wanted you to have all of the options, which is why it took 20 minutes. Some of these questions you may not want to ask. If you don't do sleep apnea, you may not want to ask those questions. Right? may not want to, not initially. So, but when you get to where you're doing this and you've got to flow with it, you're gonna find your case acceptance will dramatically increase. Not only that, but your care is becoming much more thorough because you've got a filter to take the diagnosis through. So you don't have to hire a whole new person. You have to figure out how to fit it in with the makeup that you have. So maybe in your office, the hygienist can support you. Maybe an assistant can, maybe Dawn can. We just have to figure out what is gonna be the best way to kick this off so we can get to practice. And then we can fine tune it and improve it over time. Okay? What other questions do you have? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, in our office, new patient is gonna be an hour. So, as the hygienist, well, I guess we could do a quick office tour on the way to the hospital. Then sit down, do the non-clinical interview, this, and whatever meds for on the way. Then, I do the x-rays, exam, perio evaluation. Then do the clinical part. Then get the doctor in to identify the things that is able.
Yeah, so if you were doing an initial clinical interview, you would do the tour, you would see them. And by the way, the first 10 minutes, if we're doing schedule to go, the first 10 minutes of every appointment is already relationship time. We may not be using it for that yet, but there's 10 minutes already designated, so we're talking about 5 to 10 more minutes on average, right? So yeah, after you conduct this, you get all of the diagnostics, you do the charting, you start with the, or actually the doctor may want to come in and do the exam before you start the cleaning because you may not know what kind of cleaning they need. You may not know if they need a deep scale or a traditional profile. So in some instances,
In some
if they haven't been to the
yes, there were-
dentist in 10 years,
Yes.
for example, you may want to bring the doctor in for the exam first. If they've been, like John said, he moved.
Right.
So he's been in the care of someone else. Unlikely there's a whole lot of buildup. He talked about flossing, so we know he's pretty on top of his maintenance for the most part. So as far as that goes, I think you'll have to use your discretion based on where the patient is, yeah.
He also got food getting trapped in his
Yes, he
pockets, which told me he had perio, which I think would be an
It should be
indication.
between his teeth.
Well, yeah, but doesn't that indicate
No.
recession?
No.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. If his teeth had loosened,
Gotcha.
if his teeth had loosened, it could be.
Some
Okay.
people just have
We also-
spaces in between the teeth, just naturally, not even anything that has been done dentally in the past, it's just their teeth.
So yeah, that did take a little long. Again, you don't have to invest 20 minutes. Usually on average, it's about 12 to 15. Okay, now, here's the $1 million. Any other questions about that really quick before we answer some questions and see how acutely sensitive you were? I'm gonna come back there, Renee. Let me answer Ms. Carla first. Yes, ma'am.
Where do you put in normal medical certification?
That would go before you start, after you get the diagnostics, or before you get the diagnostics, you can review the health history there. You can even tack it on to the end of this interview before going back into the office. So again, everyone's time, you heard Shay over here say, well, we actually do the tour after the interview, right? Instead of before the interview. So we're a little bit flexible in the syntax of how it happens, okay? As long as it happens. Yes, sir. Oh, wait, let me get Renee first. Renee, unless you're addressing Carla's question. Okay, Renee?
So, that interview was pretty long and you asked a lot of questions. Now, what if you get let's say like a chatty Kathy, and she wants to talk and, like, you asked her questions and you wanted answers, but what if she started asking you questions back?
Then you answer her question, you give her a pointed answer, then immediately ask her a
Or on
question.
the other flip side, what if you have someone in the chair that's really shy, introverted, scared to death, doesn't wanna be there in the first place, is only there because of an emergency or whatever, and then they don't wanna answer your questions, like, they're frustrated.
That's a
they're-
lack of rapport. That means I'm not in rapport yet.
So will these questions put you in rapport with them?
Matching and mirroring will put you in rapport with them.
Can you do that during the interview or no?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I did it during the interview. How many of you saw me match and mirror him? How many of you heard me match and mirror him? So it happens during the interview. It happens when they walk in. So the whole time throughout that process, you need to be matching and mirroring because that's what puts them at ease. Even when I asked the second question, I knew the moment I did it, he was somewhat forgiving. True? He was somewhat forgiving because we have rapport. And it was to match and mirror him. How many of you noticed what I did to match and mirror him? How did I match and mirror him?
Your tone, you're not gonna joke.
In my tone, with my hands. How else did I match and mirror him?
The voice.
And you leaned over to the side.
So, first of all, I cannot sit spread eagle like he did. Right? It's not ladylike, but the moment he crossed his feet at the ankle, 5 seconds later, I did too. When he started twirling in his chair, I mirrored that back, because he wasn't facing me. He was creating that guard, so he wasn't facing me. So I had to use those subliminal cues to get him to open up, and by the end, he was facing me. How many of you noticed that? Yeah. So, that is what we do, Renee. If I feel like someone started, it means I don't have rapport yet, because if they're not responding to me, rapport means they're gonna respond. If they're not responding to me, matching and mirroring is the fastest way. So just look for something to match and mirror, so that you can lower that guard and they'll be a little bit more open. John? Yes,
It's
sir?
another reason why chart auditing is so important and making it through all of your active patient charts every 6 months, because if the person's uncomfortable or if they're very introverted and shying away, if we don't do a good job getting in rapport, but if we don't extract all the information that we need during the non-clinical interview, then when they come back 6 months from now, we've done a chart audit within that 6 months, we've identified the pieces of information that we need to get the second time. So when they come in this time, I have a couple of questions I can ask them during the first part of the appointment. And I mean, this form, that form should like live and breathe. Like over, 10 years from now, if they're your patient from 10 years from now, and 10 years from now, that form should have a whole heck of a lot of information on it that wasn't on it the first time you did the non-clinical interview. So every time we learn about the person, we need to continue to update our notes so that every time the patient's in our presence, we're fully prepared.
Great, thank you for that. Yes, ma'am?
Okay, so an interview without rapport is more like an interrogation, right?
Questions without rapport is an
Well,
interrogation.
But you can build rapport and do the interview at the same time?
Yes. Yes. And did you guys notice I did something else before I went into that line of questioning? I did something else. I asked permission. I actually pre-framed why I was going into these questions. So I gave him a filter to take it through, got his permission. I asked his permission. May I ask you a few questions? Because you could tell where the tension, he was tense here. How many of you saw that? He was tense up here. He was kind of tense. You could tell where he was very fidgety. So you could tell he was uncomfortable, right? You could tell he was uncomfortable, but we can't let their discomfort create a barrier to where we can't serve them. So yes, you can get in rapport as you ask the question, but always start with a pre-frame, give them a filter to take it through, and match and mirror so that they will be in a state of responsiveness with you. What other questions do you have about this process?
Kind of a hygiene there. I'm facing the same direction, so I want to see the facial reactions and all that. I've got a real time opportunity. Should I turn and face them? Should I
You can use your other chair. You have two chairs. You can use your other chair.
But I can't mirror them. feet and that sort of thing.
No, but see, we don't have to mirror everything. You can mirror breathing, you can mirror facial expression, and you can mirror words. Okay, you find what you can mirror. Just like I couldn't mirror John's physiology because he's over here spread eagle. I can't do that. I can't do that. So I had to mirror other things. Hand gestures, words, tone, that kind of thing. Okay, any other questions about that? Oh, yes, go ahead. I'll come out there with you.
I have questions there, because you guys are doing the patient interview now, correct? And like, how many questions are you guys asking, like, just a regular person?
Well, we pretty much go through, we have this form here, and so what we did with the, new patient package, there is a medical portion and then dental questions as far as clicking of the jaw, periodontal disease. We deleted that out of the, questionnaire because those questions are here. And so to prevent asking the same questions over, is basically going from there to where it doesn't really take up a lot of time like you think. So you just have to look over what you have and combine this here into that.
How long does your interview take?
Probably about 12 minutes at the most. And it's starting out, it's a little uncomfortable because it seems like you're asking a lot of questions, but it also gives you the opportunity for the patient to laugh and talk like it's actually a good outcome. And so when we pass them off to the hygienist, the key points that they're taking from this is, they look for longevity, and we basically set up the platform for them to go ahead and do a report. They don't have to ask all those questions. They're just going to medical, things like that.
We're curious, expanding on what they've already asked them,
You do the handoff, are you pretty much repeating what he has said to, like, in front of him to her, or you just give them the quick and dirty, this is what his expectations are?
So they'll basically get the form that we filled out, and so we just introduce the patient to whoever will take care of them, and they know because, like I said, we don't have the opportunity to do this interview. They're asking the same questions, what's most important, they're talking to the patient, so they know what to look for on the form. So they pull that information, and then when the doctor comes in to do his exam, they're basically telling the doctor, introducing the doctor and the patient, what the patient, whether they're a big picture person or detail, their values, things like that, and then the doctor go into his conversation. So it's not a whole lot of conversation between us.
It's really out loud spoken when I transfer to him.
Yeah.
Him as he comes in.
So we're just passing off to introduce, not what.
Any other questions? So, yes, I'm sorry, Dawn.
That's okay, I was just curious, let's just say you get a patient that, and I know you're talking about mirroring their, but what if that doesn't work? What
It
if-
always works.
Okay,
It always works.
even if you've got that patient that just really doesn't wanna listen to all these questions, and, because we have some patients that are like.
But usually that's a fear. They gotta be somewhere.
Or they just are rude
But you
to
ask the
begin
question.
with.
Yeah.
They don't wanna answer anything.
Some people don't wanna give your social security numbers or anything, I mean, it's
Right.
ridiculous.
If it's a rude individual, that's probably the ideal time to say, this may not be the patient we want to put in our.
Well, it's true, true.
But again, rapport means they are responsive. Right? So if they're not responsive, if they are just blocking me, it means I haven't given them a reason to respond to me. They're treating me like everyone else. I am not being the purple cow. I'm being like everyone else, so they're gonna shut down and shut me off, and they're gonna go into their zone and just get in there and clean my teeth. That's all I want. But if I spend time matching and mirroring and honoring them and putting them at ease and making them comfortable, they will begin, just like John. John tried his best to block me. How many of you saw that? He did. Immediately. He tried his best. I caught him on the spot. It wasn't going to be him. It was going to be Kayla. Women are much easier than men in the dental chair. How many of you found that to be true? For the most part. So at first, he did not want to respond to me. He was kind of creating that wall. But the more I mirrored him, the more open he became. right? So just remember, it is always my ability. It is never ever this, it's me.
I'm sure there
It's
are
how-
some of our patients, there's nothing we can do. We have thousands of patients. Realistically, there's gonna be a handful of them, like 5, that no matter what we do. Like if we ask them, what's the best thing we can do today for you, they'd say, stop asking me questions.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
there's gonna be people like that in this world, just so you do our best and move on to the next patient, and, you know, nothing's
So
100%
we shut that
foolproof.
interview down. Shut it down.
Get on my
So
sharp
again,
instruments now.
use your sensory acuity.
Code green, code green.
Use your sensory
Code green in
acuity.
Opportunity 1.
Make it all about them, not about you. See, when people shut us down, it's because they feel like we're trying to serve our needs, not theirs. And they will shut us down. But if it's all about them, people love talking about themselves.
And they'll question why we're doing it, but I think when you redirect them to let them know it's about them, so that we can get them what they want and need, then they're more open to answer the question. I don't think we have any patients that would be like, no, I'm not doing this, or I have to do this.
Yeah, and when you first do this, I'm gonna come to you, John, and Dana, I know you want to say something. Assume everyone will respond to you if you match and mirror enough, if you use enough active listening skills. Assume everybody will. Don't assume nobody will. Assume everybody will. And if you encounter that one who's just gonna shut down, then fine, move on if you need to. Use your sensory acuity, shut it down, but not before you manage yourself. Not before you put yourself in the zone of connecting with them and you are fully present and fully there and fully engaged. That would be my recommendation. Let me come over here today and then I'll come back up here to you, Dr. B. Yes, ma'am.
Are you talking about like if the new patient is coming in on an emergency? 'Cause if we-
No.
Okay, because I was gonna say, if the new patient has a terrible toothache, you're not gonna wanna sit
No,
there
no, no,
and
no.
talk for 15 minutes.
No, this is part of the 1 hour and 20 minute, 1 hour and a half new patient visit with a comprehensive
Because I
exam.
thought a toothache was going to be agitated and they're in pain.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get true value for either, because they only put them at that point.
So that was,
Right. John?
It's the last thing I'll say. And this is important. There's so much more to it. I mean, this whole session's about influence. You know what I mean? There's so much more to it than just having a form with questions on it.
Yes.
So it's just like the reality check and the quality request and quality response. If you have to use that form every time you do a reality check or every time you go to make a quality request, you got some work to do. I mean, you need to embrace it, you need to learn it, and it needs to become part of your language and your understanding of how to influence. Same thing with those questions. If you understand the process of the non-clinical interview and why the questions are the way the questions are, and what you're listening for and looking for with those questions, it doesn't matter if the patient may be just in a stuck state and he was like, just stop asking me questions. You got to appreciate how many times, how much his body's going to move. He's going to be in a chair, laid back, set up, talking to the doctor, turning this way. He's going to be at the front desk. He's going to be in the consult room. His body is going to move a lot over the course of that 90 minutes, which means his state is very flexible throughout that process. So if I'm in the consult room and I don't get all the answers on the non-clinical interview, that's okay. The doctor knows what the questions are. That's okay. The assistant knows. That's okay. The hygienist knows. And as long as we're all in tune and in sync with what's going on throughout that appointment, anybody can ask those questions because we all know how much of it we've gotten so far. And then by the end of the appointment, we should have collectively gotten more information regardless of the state he's in by the end of the appointment. If we didn't, that's okay because he's going to be back 6 months from now and we will have audited the chart before then. And next time he's in here, we'll be able to get some more information from him.
So guys, this is a tactic. How we engage it is a strategy. Do you guys understand what I mean by that? This form, as John said, this form is just a form. These questions are just questions. But when you add the questions with matching and mirroring, with leading and pacing, with active listening, it lives and breathes, and you are very much able to influence just about anybody. Influence is more than questions. Influence is more than telling people what to do. Influence is more than educating them. Influence is about causing a change in behavior. That's what influence is. Yes, sir.
And I was just gonna suggest that if you feel like you're at a wall, and you're just not getting anywhere, and if you just wanna open them up, and ask them about their children. You know, ask them about if they think they may have grandchildren, ask them about that. And obviously make it quick, but I mean, you wanna see walls come down. Do that, and then proceed. I mean,
So remember, still, matching mirroring is gonna get it done the fastest. I said he could borrow it. He learned how to do that. Didn't you?
yeah.
So, quick question, because Jessica just alerted me on time, and I said, since you guys took off lunch early, we let you out of here early, right? But we had to take it to completion. So, tell me, was he moving toward or moving away from?
Away.
He was moving toward. Yes, no. He said, where did it go? So it was how it was structured. Now later on he said, do not hurt me. Later on he said, do not hurt me, but in the beginning, he said, I want to know everything's working right, that nothing is getting missed, and that I'm able to maintain wellness. Those are benefits. He was moving toward benefits.
Talk about the root canal and
He
then-
did talk about his root canal because his doctor missed it.
I don't know.
I said away, because he didn't want to go there.
But that was his anchor, I feel like that was his anchor, so he didn't want to experience that thing.
But that's because I asked him why.
Everything in place prior to
Reagan, what does your brother think?
I believe to what?
What does your brother think?
John, do you think he was moving toward or moving away?
I think he's moving away.
Jury's out. I say he was moving toward because he told me his benefits. He told me what he was after, not what he was trying to avoid. He told me about the root canal when I said, what about that is important to you? When I said, what about that is important to you? He said, well, I had a doctor, I had to have a root canal done, and it was something my doctor missed. And I don't want to
Consequence.
have to go through that again.
Consequence.
But when I said, what is your, John wants to be right, he's a C. So I'm
I
gonna let him
told
be
you.
right.
I'm a DC now, so I'm gonna be very assertive, but I'm right.
I'm gonna let him be right.
Yeah, really.
But he was moving toward it. That'll work for me. So then he went into, well, what's most important to you in a relationship with a dentist? And he said that they joke, that they're sarcastic. He led with benefits. Then he said they're not too pushy. So when they start with benefits, they may still give you a moving away from response a little later, but it's what they lead with. It's what their automatic, non-led, non-influenced, automated response is. So we'll let you guys decipher that. Now, was he possibility or necessity? Possibility. He was possibility. Was he internal or external?
Internal.
Well, actually, explain to me why you think he was internal.
Just a question about the whitening on number 8. Somebody said that, right, that what?
For himself.
Internal isn't about what we do for ourselves. Internal is where our frame of reference is.
How you feel it, so you feel good from within.
But he did say that his frame of reference, like he wanted data, he wanted historical stuff, like not a lot, but he didn't want stuff from other people.
He said, I trust the doctor, whatever they tell me to do is what I will do.
And
And I'd like for them to give me the facts and the historical data that is external. That is what he needs to know he's making a decision. That was an external frame of reference. Again, it takes practice to hear in between, to listen between what they don't say. I say he was external. Dr. B thinks internal. Yes, ma'am?
Well, my thing is, he said during the interview, as long as you have a couple of takeaways, like as far as their value rules, then you got it anyway.
Yes.
So even though some of them, you may read it one way or the other, as long as you establish that rapport, it really doesn't matter.
As long as you have two.
In that progress.
Right, as long as you have two. What was his modality? What was his convincer strategy? Was he visual, auditory, or kinesthetic? His convincer strategy. So his modality was different. He actually went back and forth between a couple of different modalities. But his convincer strategy, yes, he wanted to see the x-rays. He wanted to see the x-rays. He wanted to see the data. He used see and look several times. Visual. Now, let's see, what was the other one? Let's see. In hindsight, I would have never asked him how long he wanted to keep his teeth. I don't like that question anyway. I don't know why that's in there. Yeah, I wouldn't have asked him that because he gave me no indication that longevity was important to him. Yeah, I did ask him that question, so I don't even know what that question's doing there. I didn't create this work, but it comes from corporate, but I would strike that question. What did you like with your previous dentist? What are your expectations? What was his #1 dental value? Comfort! He even said comfort. He said, I don't want to feel anything. He said, yeah, he doesn't want to be treated like a man-child. So what's interesting is in his relationship with the dentist, he may have been moving away from. In his dental health, he's moving toward. Remember I said they would change based on the context you put it in, right? So when I asked him about his relationship with the dentist, he gave me what he didn't want. Don't hurt me. No surprises, right? Give me anything. I want to be on the beach somewhere. He did say that. I want to be on the beach somewhere. So see, and as Janine said, I just wanted you to know we picked up we picked up his values, we picked up his rules. By the way, what has to happen for him to feel comfortable?
You could say options, he needed options.
He needed options. He said, give me a couple of options, I can pick. That's how I knew he was possibility. That's why I didn't have to even ask that question. He answered the possibility question twice. I didn't have to ask it again. But I did. So I could have broken rapport and actually did. And you heard him say, I don't know, I didn't know why you asked me that question again. Is he big picture or detail? Detail. Yeah. So see, we don't have to go and we don't have to structure I know you C's in the room are flipping out, like you've got to go structure your entire case presentation around all these different things. You don't. You can move him, you can influence him with 2 meta programs if you honor them genuinely, authentically. Yes, ma'am.
Well, he said he wanted 2 options, but then he said, I want you to tell me what I need and what'll happen if I don't do it, or something to that effect. He did not say, it's almost like he contradicted himself. So do
In the
you
beginning, he
just?
said A and B options.
Yes.
So initially, I wrote big picture from that, and then when she asked him again, he said detail. So that was kind of.
Before he said, just tell me what I need,
Yeah.
I said big because I changed it later to detail.
But then he also said that, money wasn't gonna be a driving factor, and so that having those options would be letting him be respectful of his finances and seeing what would be tailored best for him based on his want and needs.
What is his rule around affordability? Not more than his mortgage. What question did I ask him to move him past that belief? If I could offer him a payment that was less than his mortgage, if he had an extensive plan, would that work? Right? So see, we can ebb and flow and wane with whatever they say, but, and again, if you want to condense this a little bit, you have my blessing, you have John's blessing. If you want to work this in bite-sized pieces, you can certainly do that too. But it's pretty powerful. You've already had 3, and this is not about your experience. Let me be very clear. Those of you who are trying to figure out, fitting it into your schedule and you're putting it just through your filter, what the 3 people we brought up here that have gone through this process, her, Kathy, and him, what did they say about this?
It was different than anything that ever happened to me before.
All 3 of them used they used very similar words when they described what this experience was like for
More
them.
personal, more comforting, because it felt about them and not about
Right, all three of them. Did you guys hear? All three of them said that. All three of them said it felt like you were really interested in what I wanted, not what you wanted. Those people that put up guards and will give you nothing, it's because you've never really connected with them. It's all about you. It's all about what you want and minding them through. At least that's what they feel. That's why they're not responding to you. John and I run into that. True or false, John? We run into that with team members all the time. What do you do? What do you do if everyone on a team is responsive to you but maybe one? What do you do? Does it mean they're bad people? Does it mean they're not team players? Does it mean they don't need to be here? No. It means we've got to do a better job at trying to connect with that person until we create that responsiveness. You know, it's hard trying to meet everyone where they are all the time. We don't always get it right. We get it right about 98% of the time, but not always. So this is something we all have to get really good at. It is a skill. That's all it is. But please keep in mind, your reputation is what people out there in the community say about you. That's your reputation. And when you're in a service-oriented business, it can't be about you. Now, I say that businesses are not for profit, but when it comes to service and the patient experience, it can't be about you. The systems are about you, the predictability, the continuity, the efficiency, the effectiveness. That is about you. But when it comes to the lifeblood of your practice, it's all about them. When you go into, like this morning, how did the front desk person at the hotel treat me? Was it about me? If he treated you that way, how would you feel? How would you feel? Disappointed, let down, like why did I pay $250 for a room and I can't even get a good morning? It should be about me. He's there to serve me. When a patient comes to your office, you're there to serve them. It is all about them.
I go find John and beat him up.
You'll bring the guns. Welcome to the show. All right. Any other questions about this? It's going to take practice, guys. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a good way to try to incorporate this? Because I just look at this, and this is the second time too that I've done it, and I'm like, oh my God. So, I mean, like, we've tried to do like visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and then I'm thinking, okay, maybe next we could like try to get that, like some meta programs, and then maybe from there go and get their balance. Like, is there, what's, like,
If you're gonna cut it down, you know, what we did when we first started, start out with their values and their meta programs, like the way you're then work together. But you first, we're supposed to do the values.
Chunk it down.
Yeah.
Chunk it down because it's layered. And that's why this is, by the way, meta programs, values discovery, matching and mirroring. The power to influence is the most complex technology that you're going to learn for the most part. The most complex when it comes to how you interact with patients, and it takes a while to master. It takes a while to master. John and I've been doing this for 20 years. John's been doing it for 6. We can't agree on what the answer was. It's complex. It's complex, but the more often you do it, the better you get. So I would chunk it down. Start with values. Start with values, and as you get really comfortable with values, insert one meta program and practice that one.
But
When everyone feels like...
If you go your way and John goes his way with the patient, even if you don't do it exactly right, you can get a lot.
Yes.
If you get one or two right,
Yeah.
you're good.
You're good.
Yeah.
Most people don't do that. Most don't do that.
What do you think his disc was?
Is this?
I think he was an SC or a CS.
I don't know. To be honest, I wasn't looking for it.
Because he wanted information. He said information data a couple of times.
I wasn't really looking for it, to be honest. I wasn't actively listening through. I was listening more for meta programs.
I
and
tend to,
values for the linguistics.
that's what I tend to start with. I tend to start by trying to assess and determine what their disc is, because from what I've found, this may not be true for everybody, but from what I've found, there are certain correlations between, because with the disc, you know what some of their dominant values are. A D's respect, a C's trust. You know what I mean? You immediately know, if you can identify their disc, you immediately know
Well,
what some of
C's
their
data,
values are.
S is trust.
Or S is
So
trust.
he's probably
C's
an
data.
S.
Or lightness or whatever, with an I. But you immediately know what their like most dominant value is in terms of personability. But I've also noticed a lot of consistencies between like D's for the most part, and it's not always. There are some anomalies there. But D's for the most part tend to be big picture. C's tend to be detailed. You know what I mean? So you can kind of, I mean, not to say you won't ever find a D that's detailed, because you will, but there are certain consistencies in there where I think that you're playing the odds. You know, it's kind of like gambling a little bit. But if I start with the disc, and then from the disc I go into values and rules, meta programs. That's just kind of the hierarchy, the structure that I go through. But it's effective.
Good deal. Any other questions about this? No? Okay, so from this initial clinical interview, and now you have them in a chair, and now you have to take all of this information and go into case presentation, go into actually enrolling them. So on page 37 in your workbook, you will see the 5 steps of enrollment. This is a step-by-step guide in how to guide someone from finding to getting the commitment and getting them scheduled. Step number 1 is always rapport. Rapport. And we've already talked about a few ways to do that. We can do that through ID frame, matching and mirroring modalities. So it's very easy to establish rapport if we are acutely sensitive to where they are. If we're paying attention, actively listening, and watching for any changes. Because it will be, relationships are dynamic, they're not stagnant, right? So it's not like we'll ask the same questions every time. The follow-up question to get a rule will change based on the answer to the initial question. True? Shouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So once I'm in rapport, now I can go into the values discovery by asking those triple impact questions. What's most important? What's most important to you here? What's most important to you here in getting rules? Are you out?
Yeah, I've got a coaching call in 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you for being here. Are you
you're
around town this weekend?
No, I'm in town.
You are? All right.
I'm gonna be golfing all day tomorrow and Sunday.
Okay, well, I fly to North Carolina on Sunday, so I'll see you next month.
I'm in
sometime.
Atlanta all next
Thank-
week.
I'll be out all day. It doesn't matter. Bye. Love
See
you.
y'all.
Have fun. Thank you for sitting in.
Bye. Thank you.
So I'm talking about. It's nuts. So next is discovering needs and values. So once I'm in rapport, then it's needs and values discovery. Then you go right into giving them what they want the way they want it. This is where we link their highest value to their treatment needs. And when you know their values, it's easy. That's what I want you to get. Now, Dr. Barnett, you guys have been doing this for a while. How easy is it? How much time does it save you when you know their values and you go in to present their treatment plan? How much time does it save you? Because he knows their values. He doesn't have to try to feel like he has to convince them or give them all of this data or all of this detail, because he knows the filter they need to hear it. He knows linguistically how it needs to be structured. He just goes in and does it, and it's like, okay, what's your case acceptance percentage?
I would say about 9% of our patients get the schedule. That's rejected.
It becomes very predictable. That's all I want you to get. It becomes very predictable. So you can keep shooting at a dartboard, hoping that you're right and the way you've always done it is going to continue to work, or you could try something different. and get more patients to accept, see your chairs more full, see your patients' health improving, and save your front desk time from having to chase people down and convince them they need it. Yes, ma'am.
And the hygienist, your job though, by using these things that you have found out, is to have them enroll, obviously, it's going to be very
That's true. Did you hear what she said? So the hygienist's job, and this could be during the comprehensive exam, it's also during re-care exams. Part of what has a hygienist be extremely valuable is her ability to co-discover with the patient, to co-diagnose. Not diagnose, but co-diagnose, pre-frame the patient. Now this is what I see. This is what usually Dr. Barnett recommends whenever the tooth is in this condition. So 9 times out of 10, he's probably gonna recommend this. On this tooth, he's probably gonna recommend this. Dr. Barnett walks in, she says, I already talked to her about number 19 and number 29. This is what's going on. I told her it's probably a crown, but that you would need to take a look and confirm.
When I walk in, and that's not the case, which is rare, and so like that never happens. Like I expect them to already have the patient yes, unless there's something that you really can't get.
Well, if the patient is not enrolled for hygienist, that's when you pull from the value, basically you're compromising, well, I see you value longevity, and if we don't get this done, you know, X, Y, and Z could take place, so. Conversation don't really take that long.
Every time it does that, it sounds like somebody's knocking.
Knocking, I know.
I know.
Ghost.
Yes, a ghost. So start with rapport. You cannot go into values discovery until you have rapport. Did I go ahead? Okay, good. I thought maybe I forwarded it. But you can't go into values discovery unless you have rapport. You can't go into a whole bunch of questions unless you have rapport. So rapport is first. Once you're in rapport, then it's discovering needs and values. And a couple of rules for their values so you know what they want and how they want it. Then you go into linking their treatment, their present condition, and their treatment needs, linking that to their highest value. So that's giving them what they want, not what we want for them. Then from there, you get the commitment. From there, you get the commitment, and there's a series of questions in your book that can help guide them to the commitment. And the last step of enrollment is acknowledgement. Now, what does that mean? What does it mean to acknowledge a patient? So you're in rapport, you presented the findings, you've gotten a commitment, they're ready to schedule, they're on the books, the FA's done. What does it mean to acknowledge? Did everybody hear what he said?
No.
The acknowledgement at the end of them agreeing and committing to treatment eliminates buyer's remorse. Number one, it cements in their mind and in their nervous system they made the right decision. Even if it's $10,000, if it's $40,000, it cements they made the right decision. So very rarely will they tell a friend, I never should have done that. I never should have done that. So it eliminates buyer's remorse. But these are the steps we guide every patient through if we want to get predictable case acceptance every time. But the initial clinical interview makes this difficult if you're not doing it, because you don't have all of the information. Without knowing their values, you're already selling. How many of you recognize that? If you don't have their values, you're selling right now. But you don't have to. You can just be the solution. Does this make sense?
Yes.
How many of you are willing to try this in your office? Even if you have to condense it in the beginning, how many of you are going to make a commitment today you're willing to try it? I saw Brandy's physiology shift like, shit, here we And then her mind, she's thinking, she's gonna make me do this. She's gonna make me do this. So how many of you are willing to try it? How many of you believe that we would never spend this much time teaching you a tool if it didn't work? How many of you trust that it is not in our best interest to teach you something if it didn't work? And if it didn't work predictably? Wouldn't behoove us. Wouldn't serve us, it does not serve you, and it doesn't serve the greater good. Why would we do that? So again, condense it if you must. Start small and work your way up to the big stuff, but when you start and when it works, I need a commitment. You're gonna buy me lunch the next time I see you. Carmen already promised me big ass flowers when I helped her get out of MetLife, and I've got it documented. I'm gonna be making sure she keeps her promise, because I'm gonna keep my promise. So if it doesn't work, you let me know and we'll talk about what about it's not working, because it always works. When we as coaches, we use this process with our clients. How many of you, Dr. Will, Dr. Ebel, Dr. Rushing, Dr. Clayton, how many of you, when I started going through these questions, you thought, those sound familiar? They sound familiar to you? I know they do to you because he's been doing it. Did they sound familiar to you?
Yeah, some of them.
Dr. Will, did they sound familiar to you?
It's just things that you ask on a general basis.
Did they sound familiar to you? Every client I work with, before I start with them, I ask them these questions because I need to know what they're looking for. She's not looking for the same thing from me as Dr. Clayton is. Dr. Ebel's not looking for the same thing from me as Dr. Jones is. You all came to me for something different. All of you. And if I treated you all the same, you would get no value. If I wasn't looking at how do I give you what you want, you would get no value. So some of these questions, now granted, I didn't ask you the entire interview, but there were about 6 questions in that interview I asked all of you. Because it works. It just works in being the solution. So, 5 steps of enrollment. Now, let's talk really quickly about objections. And the next time, if you'll make a note somewhere, the next time we are scheduled for our next in-office visit, we can do a workshop just with your team over how to handle objections. But this is where everything comes to a screeching halt. When they throw up an objection and we're like, okay. When they say, oh, I can't afford it, okay. Well, I need to ask my home, okay. We stop right there. Well, objections are actually really nice opportunities, if you see them for that. So what are the most common objections you guys run across when you're trying to get patients scheduled? First of all, do you know what the real objection is? You assume they want what you want the way you want it. That's number one. That's number one. That's the first objection. But what are the most common objections you guys get to case acceptance?
Cost.
Cost. Can't afford it. I'm sorry? Fear?
Their availability of when they can actually get in the office to have it done.
Okay. Other objections? To why patients won't schedule.
The only one I ever get, ever, is cost. Ever. Ever.
They don't feel that, they don't see the necessity. And
They don't see the value.
Right.
They don't see the value. See, we all find a way to buy what we value. Now, we may go the knockoff route, right? Instead of the implant, we may go for the bridge. But we may buy the knockoff purse, the knockoff jacket, or whatever. We may buy the less than stellar brand, but we all figure out a way to buy what we want.
Oh, yeah, they
We all
come in
do.
with the
We will put our
extensions and
needs.
the nails and the.
Oh yeah, we'll put our needs on the back burner to get what we want.
Yes.
We will always afford what we want. So when cost comes up, and yes, it will come up, when cost comes up, 8 out of 10 times, it's because they don't value what we're enrolling them in because we don't know what they value to begin with. 8 out of 10 times. Yes, there are people with real financial concerns, but 8 out of 10 times, probably 9 out of 10 times, we're selling them something they don't value because we don't know what they value. What are you gonna say, Renee?
I'm just gonna say, okay, when it comes to anything, whether it's buying a car, home, whatever, the first thing I'm thinking about is cost. Now, when you and I spoke and you were asking me what my values were, the last thing on my mind was how much it was gonna cost. So, I think if you tap into those values, then cost is the last thing they're gonna worry about. They just want it done.
If we have to do something, we worry about cost. Because it's being forced on us, we're not choosing. And we don't have any value associated. When it's something that we want, we figure out where to get the money.
So how do you change their perception of, you can't change someone's values? Or
No,
can
you have to find out what their values are. And when I present a crown, I'm not presenting a crown, I'm presenting a values, a means, I'm presenting a vehicle to get them their value. But I'm communicating through their value. Does that make sense? So in order to save you time, in order to make sure, did you notice that I kept mirroring back to John, I kept mirroring back to him the word he used in the beginning. Wellness and catching it early. So, because if we enroll their value, and it's not just a crown, it's not just the vehicle, people tend to move pretty quickly. So no, you won't change their values. You're gonna enroll them, you're gonna communicate through their values so that they understand how this crown is gonna save them time, how this crown is gonna save them money, how this crown is gonna give them longevity, how this crown is gonna improve their appearance, how this crown is gonna help their bike function better. Every service you offer can meet all of those values. But are you sharing that with the patient? Chances are, if you're not getting their values, there's no way you could. So it all becomes about facts and logic.
I mean, it's like, you're talking about costs, it's like, I had a patient in the chair a few weeks back that needed 2 crowns, and that I needed them, and he put it off, and his very first thing we discussed is, he can't afford it. That's the very first thing, I can't afford it, I don't have the money. Then we kept working around, because his value was longevity, and of course, he was metaphor was moving away from pain. And I discussed it with him, talked to him, Dr. Barnett came in, basically reiterated without us even just talking, because I never left the room, so it wasn't like we would co-conspirated to him. He came in, he's like, well, you know, your value is longevity, and, you know, if you don't assume this, we're gonna need root canals. He stayed the same day and had 2 crowns, immediately had the money. But to begin with, because he couldn't afford it. So when you tap into their values, all of a sudden they can. So it makes a difference. And that was the same day, he didn't go get the money and come back. He stayed that day and had it and paid for it.
Just like my husband, when our dryer broke, and he was nickel and diming the service guy, and should we buy a new dryer or a new washing machine and all that. I mean, a new washer was like $500. That camper was $12,000.
Yeah, that's my,
You know, like the washing machine's too expensive. We can't really afford that. No, you can afford something that's like 20 times more. That's brilliant. That is brilliant, honey. Wonderful. So if cost comes up, and again, there are people who have real financial concerns. I'm not saying there aren't. There are people that do. But again, if currently the statistics, which is 60% of the population has no money available on their credit cards, it means they're buying something and they're paying interest for it. And they're buying what they value, they're buying what they want. They're buying their nails and their hair and this brand new tattoo, but their mouth is gone. So it's always value. So if someone says, well, I really don't have time to come in there, I really don't have the time to schedule this right now. You can turn that objection into a commitment by saying, well, right now, to get this from start to finish, to get this completed, it's only gonna take about an hour and a half. We let this go any further and it ends up in a root canal state. We're talking about 3 separate visits, possibly. We're talking about possibly having to send you out to a specialist, which is even more time. I'm doing this to save you time. Right now, it's just an hour and a half. We wait too much longer, and I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you how much longer, but too much longer, you're gonna be looking at 2, 3, 4, 5 hours and multiple visits. So would you rather spend an hour or 5 hours here? What do you think they're gonna say? An hour. So I can meet their need. Fear and anxiety. Someone said fear and anxiety is why they don't come in. Tell me how that manifests. What do they say? How do you know?
They had a bad experience.
They had a bad experience, so they don't want to come in and have this done. Okay? So you can reframe that bad experience, pre-frame what they can expect here, and move them that way, and then filter it through their values. If you know they're here and this is what you are gonna do everything in your power to help them avoid. And if they don't get it done now, the experience is probably gonna cause them even more anxiety.
Or they have no experience.
Right. So just keep in mind, every objection, if you just reframe it, and give that objection back to them in the form of, this is actually why you should do it now. In most cases, and let's say it's cost as an example, because I know most of you deal with that. If it's cost, and they walk out of here today and they don't get it done, is it gonna get any cheaper?
I always say it's cheaper today than it will ever be.
Yes. It's not gonna get any less expensive. What's the likelihood it's gonna get more expensive if they don't do anything about it?
100%.
What?
100%.
100%. So if I really care about them, I should educate them on the fact that, you know, I know $1,200 sounds like a lot of money. You know, I feel that way too. I know exactly how you feel. And other patients who have felt that way have found that when they waited, that $1,200 most often turns into $25. So I'm assuming if you think $1,200 is a lot, $25 is probably a whole lot. So would you rather save $1,300 and get this scheduled today? What do you think they would say? Again, I didn't say, what I said was, I can save you $1,300, or would you like to save $1,300 by scheduling this today? So again, linguistics play a huge part in this, time and availability. So what I would recommend you guys do is come up, your next team meeting, mastermind amongst yourselves, and the next time I'm with you, we'll do this as well. But let's come up with a few different scenarios of what a patient has said as an objection to move forward, so that we can role play different examples of how to overcome it. When you get good at deciphering value, fewer and fewer objections are gonna come up. Is that true? Have you noticed that? Shay, have you noticed that? Through the values discovery, fewer and fewer objections come up. So, really quick, so I promise I'd get you guys out of here early. What are you taking away from today? We need to give away some books. What has been valuable for you this weekend? What are you taking back? What are you going to implement? Did you learn a lot that has an effect? Did you feel like this was a worthy investment of 2 days of your time? Okay? Tell me what you learned. They buy on emotion, they justify with logic. Yes, ma'am. Someone else. Sedina.
People will be more so we paying than game.
Yes. Awesome. Jesse, you taking some points? I got some other points to give you too.
I am, and I already got those.
Oh.
She's that good.
Johnny on the spot. Yes, ma'am.
You never loan money.
You never loan money. You give it. You give it. What else? That's okay. I'll come up to you, Carla. Dawn.
people buy, did she just say that? Buy for emotional reasons?
Yes, someone over
I'm
here
so
did.
sorry.
Yes, someone over here did, not Ms. Carla. All right, wash your hands to the next one, Carla.
Additional auditorium canister, putting this in there, that's huge.
Awesome, yes, ma'am.
We will experience whatever recalls. We will experience whatever we call pain. We call pain whatever we
Yes, we experience whatever suffering we have inflicted on another. Dr. Rush, and then I'll come back to you.
Sometimes the discovery questions are broken down and that we're good at most offices are good at asking the problem discovery questions, but the pain patient questions too. You gotta let them see the preview of, okay, what if it gets worse? You wanna be in that boat, and then here's your life.
Renee, you had your hand up, so keep your hand up nice and high so I don't skip over anybody. Renee?
Teresa.
Oh, Teresa.
Matching and mirroring is very important in order to gain rapport.
Necessary.
Necessary.
Not important, necessary.
Necessary.
Yes, ma'am, then I'll come back here.
So our survival needs and how we're only, who happy is the moment when we're growing.
Yes, Gigi, and I'm gonna come back up to Julie.
ID frame is finding commonality.
Yes. Awesome, Julie.
I think it was really helpful for us to do this practice health map, the how are you doing and how are you being, where you rank your office on a scale of 1 to 10. I looked back in the book that we did, this last year, and there's been some pretty big growth there, just with our ranking system and everything, and to get new strategies put into place. I just think that it's very helpful.
Congratulations. Yes, sir.
The one big takeaway I had, and I bet Tom would agree with me, is you need to match the breathing pattern of your spouse for better sex.
That's a lot of points. That's 50 points.
50 All right, over here, Dawn, then I'm gonna circle back over here.
Bring the patient to your level of enthusiasm.
Yes. Good. Lead and pace. Awesome. I got you. And I'm gonna come back over here, Janine.
Remember that your team will only be as good as the worst day.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Values are elections.
Yes.
Want to avoid pain to make you gain.
Absolutely. Dr. B, then we're coming over to Sedina.
So I'm a talker, so it's good to be reminded that the patient should be doing 80% of the talking, and you should be doing 20% of it.
Awesome. Sedina.
What we give rarely comes back from the same place we gave it to.
Oh, 5 points for Sedina. She said, say it again so they can hear it.
What we give rarely comes back from the same place we gave it to.
And we cause ourselves a lot of suffering because we're looking at the place we gave it, not noticing it's coming to us here. We cause ourselves suffering.
That's why Dad's gonna get his loan back today, somewhere else.
That's my wife.
I don't know where it's coming from, but it's somewhere else.
Then he said you need to look somewhere else for that loan. See, what's rule number 1? You shouldn't have loaned it.
It's not a loan.
Learn so much.
Actually, he learned today, he actually gifted it to you. All right, 2 more and then we will send you guys home. 2 more. Janine? Work on developing third level listening. Absolutely. And you will be unstoppable. I'll come over here to scream, then back to Gabby.
Answer the phone on the second ring with a smile.
With a smile! And not like this, like,
Don't get strained, right?
yeah. With an actual smile, like, oh, somebody loves me. And Gabby. Asking you shall receive. Awesome. Good deal. Okay, Jessica, who are our book winners today?
Dr. Emma, because we got 50 classes.
Well, we have a tie
Ooh. Take that.
between Dr. Barnett and Dr. Rush.
No, you go. You know how we settle ties at Fortune?
We dance off.
The dance off. Y'all gonna dance it out? You can pick a representative. Y'all gonna dance it out? The group's gonna
I would normally be able to do that, but I have an itchy nerve in my back.
Oh, disqualified. Dr. Rushing gets the book. But he's not gonna leave it handed because he did tie for first. I'm gonna leave you with a nice little gift card. I will feed you today. He got a gift card instead. He's got a pinched nerve, so he can't get his boogie on. So I'm gonna feed him instead. All right, second place.
Dr. Ebel.
Dr. Ebel!
Get that gift card.
No more gift cards. No more food. And third place?
Dr. Jones.
Dr. Jones! All right. It had to be the breathing.
That's what did it.
All right, guys, thank you so much for your attentiveness over the past few days, for being engaged and present, and for everything you contributed to all of the other offices. You guys have a phenomenal weekend. Let us know if there's anything we can do, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next few weeks.
Thank you.